Welcome on in to another action-packed and live edition of the Between the Hash Marks podcast. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, and I'm joined by my friend, colleague, mentor, the purveyor of the Two Deep Zone, and now rebearded Mike Tanier. The beard is back. Michael, how are you today?
Doing great. This is 2 weeks of growth right here. It's a little slower than it used to be because it's a little whiter than it used to be, but we're going to be back in action. I have much more confidence in my beard right now than I have in our internet connection. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it was kind of hairy there between getting you logged in and getting set up to go live. Pun very much intended.
Yes.
I do applaud the beard coming back, although, as I mentioned to you off air, and I'll say it here again, it looks more like the Lombardo scruff that I used to grow when I grew like a goatee, rather than the patented stately Professor Mike Tanier beard that became known as your hallmark. Hopefully, after 2 more weeks of growth, you'll be back and better than ever next week.
How old were you when you were growing the scruff? Was this to get into the bar scruff? Was that what it was?
Dude, I think I just started going clean shaven like maybe 2 years ago. There used to be I used to go with a similar goatee and full scruff that you seem to have as your trademark, but nowhere near as exquisite as yours.
I don't remember that. I do not remember like evil Spock Lombardo with a goatee. That must have been, I must have memory hold that somehow. Are you sure it was 2 years ago? You're not thinking like 10 years ago? When you have kids, time gets weird, very timey-wimey. And you're like, that was 2 years ago. It's like, before Sophie was born 2 years ago, it's like, Sophie is 8 or whatever. Like, that's not 2 years ago, right?
And my whole sense of time has been thrown off post-pandemic anyway. So it very well might have been 6 years ago. Who the hell knows at this point?
Right. That could have been your COVID beard. And yeah, that would have been 6 years ago.
Yeah, the COVID beard, actually, there were birds building nests in the COVID beard that I grew. Like, it went on for like 9.5 months of not shaving at all back then. So
yeah, we all needed friends. Birds couldn't catch it. So you might as well have build a little bird's house in your soul, a little bird nest in your beard. And unhappy times, unlike the happy times we're dealing with right now where everything's going great in the world.
And especially across the NFL. We're going to get into all that. We have a big show on tap, some fun topics to really dive into. The free agent spending spree might be in the rear view, but we're kind of in that like bargain bin, thrift shop free agency period, looking ahead to the draft, what it all means. We're going to get into what it all means. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping. If you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy the jokes and the banter back and forth between Mike and I, please go ahead and subscribe to the Apple Podcast Store, to the podcast over there. Leave us those 5-star ratings and those reviews. It's the Between the Hashmarks podcast on Apple Podcasts. Leave us those 5-star ratings. Leave us the reviews. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, some guests you might like to hear from, and we'll go get them. But those 5-star reviews, they really do help grow the show.
Absolutely. But you're right. You're talking about the bargain basement era. So like the Andy Dalton, we're in the Andy Dalton era of free agency right now. And I think we'll probably talk about him in a minute. We're in the middle of March Madness, which is they kind of line up with each other. But I got to ask you, I don't want to get into too much more March Madness. We probably all watched a little bit of basketball.
Yeah.
Did you watch the flag football at all?
I watched some of it. I peeked in kind of like rubbernecking as I do driving down the highway, looking at that terrible 5-car pileup and the cars that are on fire. That's kind of that's kind of my level of attention that I gave this. But my biggest takeaway is that the NFL stars getting just rocked by the professional flag football players. Let's just scrap this whole idea of sending Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and all these guys. Let's send those dudes. Let's send the professional flag football dudes and let them represent us in the Olympics next summer. Those guys earned it. They deserve it.
Right, because they're running like basketball-type plays in flag football. It's like a 2-point guard give-and-go play between the two guys who are sort of quarterbacks. And you can't do that with Tom Brady. You can't have him like running, et cetera. But you missed an Eagles smorgasbord in this.
I saw Saquon Barkley make a couple of plays. I saw Saquon make a couple of big catches deep down the field. Was there more than that?
Saquon was there. Devontae Smith was there. Jalen Hurts was there. A.J. Brown was probably reading about it somewhere. And Saquon made a big play, but here's the thing. I saw Jalen Hurts get sacked. You get your flag ripped off by Logan Paul. You know who Logan Paul is?
Yeah.
Could you tell me who Logan Paul is? Because I'm not 100% sure.
I'm pretty sure he's an influencer, right? I mean,
Right.
like a right wingish influencer, talking head type, right? Am I thinking of the
So
right Logan Paul here?
I think so. I asked my 19-year-old, and he just referred to him as an effing a-hole. Uh,
So I'm probably right.
you're probably right. I think he's also a MMA fighter, something to that effect. He's an athletic dude, but a lot of those influencers, they're eating beef talent and taking steroids and lifting a lot of weights. Uh, but like we're missing the big part here. Whoever this a-hole is, he sacked Jalen Hurts. So it was like watching the Eagles offense, but flag football. It was very disheartening to be sitting on the day after St. Patrick's Day or whenever it is, watching Jalen Hurts get sacked by an idiot.
Yeah, and again, I think that we all had our fun last spring, right? When it was announced that they were going to send, there was going to be flag football in the Olympics, and we all sat down and like, oh, here's our dream NFL team to send the
Yes.
flag football players.
Yep.
We're gonna like win this thing. We're gonna dominate because these NFL players are so athletic. I just don't get the sense that that was the right move. The better move is before the NHL started sending professional hockey players to the Olympics, just sending the kids, sending the
Yeah.
amateurs. Let's send the dudes who play flag football every year, and this is their profession, and this is what they do. And it's a different sport. It really is.
Yeah.
From what I saw, it is like watching basketball plays. It is like
Yeah.
watching,
Football.
athleticism more so than like your 11 on 11 tackle football, strategy on strategy type of situation. Send the professional flag football players. Leave the NFL guys out of this.
Yeah, we're sending the NBA guys because it is. It's a much more fluid sport. It's different strategies, and it was humbling hear Tom Brady say, "Well, strategically, we were not where we needed to be." Yeah, no shit, man. You were not where you needed to be. It was entertaining. That's what I'll say about when there's Olympic flag football. I will wind up watching it
Yeah.
because it is. It's like I'm watching a little bit of rugby, a little bit of lacrosse, a little bit of basketball, a little bit of NFL, and it'll be fun to see us compete at that level.
It's like the movie Basketball.
Oh God. Yeah, or rollerball or Calvin ball. Yeah, I'm not sure which.
And so while Saquon Barkley was off doing his thing and Jalen Hurts was getting sacked and Devonta Smith was there, it's been a really interesting offseason for the Eagles. We're going to get into some teams that I think really whiffed in free
Okay.
agency, and I think we're in agreement on a couple of those. The Eagles are kind of in the middle there. I feel like they did a really nice job of taking care of some of the young up and coming players. Like Landon Dickerson signing that extension is a pretty big, sneakily big deal in terms of keeping that offensive line together moving forward. But some of the moves that were made, bringing Dallas Goedert back, I can understand. Hollywood Brown feels like a piece of the puzzle, but it's not like they didn't knock it out of the park, but I don't know that they necessarily needed to either. Curious your thoughts on how this thing played out for them.
That's kind of it. It's like they didn't backslide horribly, and we'll probably talk about some teams that slid and lost guys. You look at defense; they found solutions to some problems. I think Reek Willen is a solution to a problem specifically, and you can solve your problem of losing Reed Blankenship a lot easier than you can find somebody like Reek Williams to solve your cornerback problem. On offense, the good news is that they're bringing the whole band back. The bad news is that they're bringing the whole band back. And as a like if this was any other team, I'd like, oh, they held on to their key guys. And yeah, Hollywood Brown, Jahan Dotson is the invisible man. It doesn't make a difference, whatever. But like it looks like we're gonna go through with these dudes again, a year older, a year more irritated with each other, and we got that like cross fingers that everyone's gonna get along and they're gonna achieve the potential that we see on paper.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you brought up the Jahan Dotson Hollywood Brown comparison because that's kind of where I am on that move too. It feels like rather than the missing piece or the way that you're going to replace AJ Brown or anything like that, it just feels like you're swapping out a former first round pick in Jahan Dotson that you took a flyer on
Right.
for a 29-year-old who was
Right.
basically a number 2 or number 3 option in Kansas City last year. And
Mhm.
unless the plan is to ship AJ Brown off and adopt Sean Mannion's Green Bay Packers vision of a bunch of number 2s, a bunch of number 3 wide receivers, and a really good pass catching tight end, this Hollywood Brown move does not move the needle for me in the
For
way
sure.
that I've seen some Eagles fans react to it after that signing went down.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to get excited about. Maybe you remember Hollywood Brown from when he was a wide receiver 1 in the NFL, which was never. He was. always somebody like as soon as he gets healthy and the system around him works and he gets the right quarterback, he was always this guy playing with Lamar Jackson, playing with Pat Mahomes, okay, playing with Kyler Murray too, where you were like expecting these big things to happen. He's not that. Might be a better fit in that, like, one of the things you do is you throw him the quick screen. You just throw him the quick screen. If the Eagles plan to do that, I know they don't like quick screens or anything really offensively, but if they're to do that, he's a guy who could wiggle for yardage, add that little bit of a dimension, whereas Jahan Dotson never seemed to fit in that role.
Right, had a couple big plays in the Super Bowl, and that
Yeah,
was about all she wrote for
yeah,
his role in Philadelphia. I do kind of like bringing Dallas Goedert back. I
yeah.
think that that's a red zone move. I think that that's a Jalen Hurts move. It's more of a commitment to Jalen Hurts than really they've made all offseason, in my opinion, because you've heard those whispers and those rumblings about, oh, maybe they're going to take a quarterback in the second or third round and develop him the same way that they took Jalen Hurts and developed him with Carson Wentz on the roster. But
Mhm.
Goddard, to me, is a bit of an endorsement of Jalen Hurts because you think back to last year, Hurts threw 16 touchdown passes in the red zone. Dallas Goedert caught 10 of them. So he's the
Mm.
consummate red zone weapon, seems familiar and comfortable in that target hierarchy in the passing game. And you look at what the Packers did on offense and what they do on offense, whether Sean Mannion's calling the plays or has any sort of role with Mike LaFleur's or Matt LaFleur's rather system, it funnels through the tight end. It funnels through Tucker Kraft. It looks like Dallas Goedert is going to once again embody that kind of a role with the Eagles with a very mediocre tight end draft class coming in where they could have not really had many great options to replace him through the draft.
That's it, because I'm working on the tight ends right now. We were talking about that off screen, and once you get past Kenyon Sadig, who's probably a top 10 pick, it's there's nobody who's going to step in and do a Dallas Goedert type role for a team. You can't just go out there in the first round and get the second best tight end because he's not really worth it. So the Eagles saw that. I'm guessing other teams across the NFL, they saw the same landscape, but maybe they were looking for younger guys. When you see guys like Chigankwonkwo and Dan Bellinger move from team to team, it might have been like, yeah, if we're getting that tight end and it ain't likely, if it's not Isaiah Likely, then we're going to go get the cheaper, younger version of that. And that's why Goddard was available to come back. Yeah, that is an endorsement of the current status quo, for better or for worse. What about Andy Dalton? What does that tell you?
Yeah, that's weird to me, right? I think what it tells me is he's going to be one of those veteran translators in the quarterback room, number one, with
Yeah,
a new system coming in. He's going to help bridge the gap between Sean Mannion's system, terminology. He's been around everywhere. More
yeah,
of that pure pocket passer, which is probably what they're going to try to make Jalen Hurts out to be in this scheme. Whether Tanner McKee gets traded or not, I think that would have happened by now, given
right.
how pedestrian this quarterback class is. But you just never know. It just seems like he's one of these veteran guys you bring into the room, and God forbid there's some sort of calamity, he can step in at a moment's notice. But it feels more like one of these quarterback coaches in a helmet rather than anything else. Do you think there's more to it than that?
No, no, I think it was kind of like the adult in the room. Like, if these guys are struggling with their communication as much as we all think they are, based on a lot of evidence, having someone in who can get along with everybody, that's one of Dalton's strengths. He comes in and sort of is like the professional and all. It's like bringing company over when your family's fighting. No one's going to fight in front of the company. I think there's a little bit of that at play. For McKay, I don't know. I think if there's a trade, it's going to happen real close to the draft or even during the draft, where like Ty Simpson goes off the board and some team is like, okay, we're not getting any. We're not.
Cardinals. Arizona
Yeah,
Cardinals panic and they call up and they offer you something, right? And
right.
and then all of a
Exactly.
sudden you have your veteran backup, and you can go ahead then and draft somebody in the third round, whether it's a Nussmeier or an
Right.
Aller or whoever, that mid-round developmental quarterback project that Tanner McKee was, that you just flipped
Right.
the draft pick for. And you have Andy Dalton in the room, which frees you up to make that kind of a trade.
Right. That's probably what it is. What boils down to a flexibility opportunity for Howie and for Nick.
I do have a really like bold idea here because the Eagles do have an AJ Brown problem on their hands, right? I mean,
Right.
because you're not going to mend those fences and fix that relationship, I don't think, based on how all of last season played out, based on the fact that up until a week ago, he was very much on the trade market. You hear
Yeah.
all of the reporting of the Patriots are calling and the Rams offered package X and this
Mhm.
team called and offered package Y. And it just seems like from people you talk to, from reporting from people like Diana Rossini and Ian Rappaport, that a trade's going to happen post June 1, right?
Right. Right.
That he's gone, right? And my thought here is that if you know he's gone, if you know you're trading him, if you know you're moving off of AJ Brown,
Yeah.
if you're Howie Roseman, do
Yeah.
you pick up the phone and call the Arizona Cardinals, call Monty Ossenfort, and offer, I don't know, 2 second-round picks for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Do you make that
Okay.
type of a trade?
Okay.
Because think about this. Of all the wide receivers that came out of Ohio State, we're talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, Michael Thomas. You're telling me that Marvin Harrison Jr., with those traits and that athleticism and those bloodlines and everything that he has, he's the guy who doesn't work out? He's the total bust. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the bust? Or was he just a byproduct of a situation where his give a damn meter was completely shot, right? Because of his
Right.
surroundings. You're playing with Kyler Murray, Jacoby Brissett. You're catching passes from you at one point, during your career there. If you know you're trading AJ Brown and you know he's gone, do you at least consider doing something like that?
If I'm Howie, I consider it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm Monty Ossenfort, who drafted Harrison and is trying to keep that thing together and also has more of the inside intel there. Like, how bad was his give a damn meter? He had an appendectomy last year that messed up the season to a degree. How bad was it a Murray versus Harrison's ego versus the fact that there are some diva tendencies that have been sitting around with him for a while? If you're Ossenfort and you're comfortable with the guy, you don't make that move. And if you're uncomfortable with the guy, then you bail on him. And then I start to worry, well, wait, what are the Eagles getting then besides like this unbelievable specimen of a dude who can jump through the rafters and has a last name that we were all very familiar with?
Yeah, and he was top 12 in the league last year in terms of average depth of target at
Yeah.
13.9 yards, top 12 in the league in yards per reception at 14.8. So there is talent there, right? It's just
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah.
situation, I don't think it ever allowed him to flourish. And AJ Brown was 37th and 40th in those two categories. You're talking about smaller sample size with Harrison Jr., arguably worse situation in terms of quarterback. We can say that AJ Brown was in a worse system, worse scheme, worse environment for that particular 12-month sample size. But it just feels to me that if you know you're moving off of AJ Brown, Hollywood Brown can't be the guy. And I
No,
don't
no,
know
that's
at
not.
number 23, is Omar Cooper, is he still on the board? The kid from Indiana, is he on the board? Is he that much of a difference maker as a rookie? It just seems like you need to make some contingency plans if you're the Eagles and you're still all in on this core and on this offense without AJ Brown. Heck, I would at least, I'd take a flyer on Harrison Jr. because he's probably the most valuable trade asset out there, and he's a wide receiver who you might be able to exchange some future draft capital for to a team that's looking to rebuild to get a guy that can help you now.
I mean, if he's on the market, he is worth pursuing for all the reasons you just said. Not sure if the market is 100% there. That's the thing. And you are trading A.J. Brown for a younger headache, which, and again, like when you're getting a high level talent, you're probably getting at wide receiver, you're probably getting some level of headache. You can't replace him with that. Nobody in the draft is going to be there. I think Omar Cooper is a good little ball player. You're talking about an RPO yak guy there. You're not like go get the ball deep on the sideline. And you can say, well, Devontae Smith could be the go get the ball deep on the sideline guy. I don't know if you want the RPO yak guy on the other side because that's an easy guy to neutralize.
For sure. And it's just going to be really interesting to watch how the Eagles operate between now and through the draft at wide receiver and even afterwards. Because
Right.
if you bring AJ Brown back, I have a hard time thinking that it's going to suddenly be different vibes. So that they walk on the field in OTAs and minicamp and everybody's going to be like singing Kumbaya and going to
No.
clubs afterwards. And the offense is going to be working. It just seems like there's this artificial deadline of like OTAs or mandatory minicamp, or certainly a hard deadline like
Mhm.
June 1, where you need to figure out what is this going to be? Where's he going to be? And what's this offense going to look like? And who replaces that production in that spot in the supporting cast for Jalen Hurts?
the other calculation here with your trade partners is the money's getting spent. Now the Eagles have to eat a ton of cap space, but you're still like trading part of that contract to these other teams, and one by one, their budgets reach a certain level. Okay, and if you wait until after the draft, of course, then teams will be like, "Oh yeah, we'll give you 2027 draft capital along the way." But then if you're Howard, that's like, "Well, then my asking price has to go up for anything for AJ Brown." So all these things, the reason why that trade never got done is because of the complexity of the salary, et cetera. And I think that those complexities don't change much in the days and weeks to come.
No, I think the June 1 is the move. I do want to switch gears just a little bit here because you basically, if you remember watching like Winnie the Pooh growing up, we watched a
Yeah,
lot
of
of Winnie
course.
the Pooh growing up here with Luca being, 3 years old, and we had the Winnie the Pooh birthday
Yeah.
experience at Disney World last year. How many times he went up to forget poking the bear, but poking the hornet's nest and trying to like wrangle the hornet's nest out of the tree to get to the honey? I
Mhm.
feel like you adopted the Winnie the Pooh mentality over the last week on social media. I don't know if you were throwing darts on a board at teams that had lackluster off seasons, and you landed on a target-rich environment with the Green Bay Packers. But you seem to have alienated and turned an entire fan base against you in the span of one Blue Sky thread last week.
Matt, hornets don't make honey.
Bees do.
I'm sorry to have to go there. That just popped in my head. Like, where's he going with Winnie the Pooh? And it's like the Hornets list. Like anyway, I'm not going to get sidetracked there. This is how I make enemies because I say shit like that. I
Yes.
apologize. Okay, but it was a bees. It was honeybees. Honeybees, of
Honeybees,
course.
yes.
Right. He's just a puffy black rain cloud hovering over the honey tree.
Honey tree.
I don't know what happened. I honestly don't know what happened, except it's not that I was looking to anger anyone. I simply pointed out something very obvious about the Packers offseason, and that is been a disaster. It's been a disaster. And like a swarm of, let's say, drones protecting the hive and the honey, a lot of Packers media and bloggers and of course fans really came after me on this. And what was frightening about it is that their take was, no, this was a good offseason. Actually, we're doing great. And I realized that there was an intervention necessarily, that these aren't foolish people or angry people. These people are addicted to copioids. They have been huffing a lot of copium because their team, obviously, Packers fans, you know this. Every year, first round of the playoffs, you're the seventh seed, you barely get in, you do something stupid, you lose. Okay. It's been happening year after year. You traded your first round pick for a guy who got hurt. So now they're in, and this offseason, they lose their defensive coordinator, then they lose a bunch of guys. So they've grabbed the copium bong or whatever you use for copium, and they start huffing. It's like, we're better off without all of those guys and without a first round pick. You wait and see. So I was left in this place where I started arguing with these cheeseheads, and I realized I shouldn't be arguing with them. I should be trying to help them. Okay, because they're suffering from a delusion, and I got a little weird because I felt like you were taking their side a little bit.
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. It got so bad that I saw a Packers aggregation site actually build out an article and a full column around your Blue Sky threads about, and they tried to disprove your off-season theory that it was actually a good off-season. And
That,
and listen, I'm with you here. I look at what the Packers have done this offseason or didn't do, and it's so out of character to what they adopted over the last couple off seasons, right? Because you look
mhm,
back 2 years ago, Brian Gutekunst comes out and so tosses decades worth of precedent in Green Bay out the window, and they spend
mhm.
big at free agency, top of the market. Xavier McKinney, bang, top
Yeah.
of the market. Josh Jacobs, bang,
Uh,
two centerpieces, both sides of the ball. You're looking at a team now that you're actually taking steps towards building something. Last year, you walk into August and you're thinking to yourself, well, Jordan Love is this, and we drafted Matthew Golden. We gave him a weapon. We have Tucker Kraft. We're good to go on offense. Oh, Michael Parsons is available. Bang, two first-round picks. We're going for it. See, those two off seasons, to me,
mhm.
those are winning. Turn the tables, turn the fortunes of the franchise around. Those are the type of monumental off
Right.
seasons you look at and you say, this is going well.
Yeah.
You trade Rashawn Gary with Micah Parsons working his way back from an ACL. Look, Rashawn Gary is what he is, and people are going to tell me that he lost a step or
Yeah.
his pressures didn't really matter. And
Right.
okay, have fun. Lucas Van Ness, guy that you won't even pick up his 5th-year option. Have
Yeah.
fun with him.
Right.
You're not even sold on him for beyond this year. Have fun. Good luck. No,
Right.
Rashawn Gary ain't even there. You don't have a first-round pick to get a Bailey or a Bain or an Ebro or any of these guys at the top of the draft. You don't have a pick to get that guy. You didn't trade for Max Crosby. You didn't sign Trey Hendrickson when you had the chance to. Good luck. Elgin
Right.
Jenkins, a little bit banged up, didn't like moving to center. Okay, he was a veteran offensive lineman. Go look what
Yeah.
happened in Philadelphia when they started to bleed talented offensive line. Go look what happened there when they were banged up and you start removing key pieces. What happened there? Oh, their entire offense fell apart. Oh, what
Yeah.
was me? Who knows? It's a talent train out of Minnesota. And I look at it and it's just like, how can you defend what they're doing? And the cap situation isn't even that great. It's almost like they looked at this, they looked at the Micah Parsons draft capital that they had to trade, and they decided, okay, we'll work past this year and we'll spend next year. But to say that this was a difference making positive offseason, I just don't see it. You're going to have to knock the draft out of the park.
Right, without a first round pick in a weak draft class, and you have to fix like 12 different little holes that open up. And every one of the conversations, it was kind of like arguing with a student who didn't do their homework, and no matter what, they have an answer, and it doesn't matter if the answers make no sense or don't add up. They're just trying to get to the point where you're tired and walk away. And it's like, okay, yeah, Rashawn Gary, that's addition by subtraction because he wasn't with the program here. And it's like, okay, you also lost Kingsley Enagbare, who was his backup, and all the things you said about Lucas Van Ness. You don't have the other edge rusher right now. Jenkins, everything you said was correct. Well, he wasn't with the program. It's like for the last 7 years in Green Bay, whenever there was an injury on their offensive line, Elgin Jenkins moved to that position and someone else stepped up. He moved to left tackle, to right tackle, to center. Now you're just, well, we don't need him anymore because Sean Ryan took over that. It's like, okay, you just lost your left tackle. Okay, Wallace, your left tackle, left for the Panthers. Don't worry about it because 2 years ago we drafted Jordan Morgan, and Jordan Morgan's ready to take over at left tackle. Oh, really? If he's ready to take over at left tackle, why wasn't he at left tackle? Why was the 7th round pick? You tried to insert him in training camp last year. I remember these things, he says. And it's like, nope, he's going to be our backup swing guard who's going to take over for Ryan when Ryan takes over for Jenkins. Now you're putting him at left tackle. You're going like this with your backups. With all your talent. If I hear from one more cheesehead, Romeo Dobbs, you know what? He was fine. He was what he was, but he's replaceable. He led your team in receptions by 30 catches. He is not,
Yeah, I get it. I get it. The Tucker Kraft is going to be that offense, just like he's always been that offense, if and when he gets back, right? And you're hoping that Matthew Golden is going to take a bigger leap in year 2 than, say, Xavier Worthy made in year 2 in Kansas City. You're hoping that Matthew Golden is the alpha dog, but you're hoping. You know what Romeo Doubs is. Christian Watson, when he's healthy, he might be a Mike Evans caliber #1 receiver, but when he's healthy is the consummate qualifier for him, right? You removed a weapon from a receiving core that lacks proven weapons. And as for this whole Rashawn Gary nonsense, do you know who's now starting? Projected as a starting defensive end opposite of Lucas Van Ness. It's Carl Brooks. And Carl Brooks is a decent player. 25 pressures last year. 50th in the league. He had 1 sack. He had 20 hurries. He played in 388 pass rushing snaps. I'm just not convinced that losing out on a guy like Rashawn Gary that you just traded away with Lucas Van Ness as your next best option until Micah Parsons gets back. I call me all the names you want. Make sure you call me skeptical that this works.
Skeptical that works, and we're playing the same game at receiver, and we're playing the same game at offensive line. And I know when I'm listening to fan theory, okay? It's like you and I, we've covered the whole NFL for years and years and years. Like we read all sorts of different blogs, and we check all these different places. And I know when the fans have been telling each other a story over and over again for so long that it takes on a life of its own. For example, Eagles fans with Tanner McKee, where they're convinced that this is, I don't know who it's supposed to be. Brock Purdy.
AJ Feely again. They're thinking it's going to net him a 2nd round pick and it's going to work out great.
Right. And the Gary and Jenkins were some sort of clubhouse cancer type of thing, and good riddance is your fan theory that kind of developed and took on a life of its own. And when they left, Packers fans were like, yeah, we got rid of these guys. Hooray. Isn't that going to be so much better? And now they're still doing that with these fan theories. Matthew Golden, well, he's going to become the alpha dog, etc. Tucker Kraft comes back. He's a good tight end. Yeah, he comes back and brings that offense back to where it was, which was the one that fails in the end of the red zone and gets shut out by the Panthers and loses in the first round of the playoffs. Packers have to get better. Packers are not the Seahawks where it's like, well, if we hold on for dear life in the offseason, then that's pretty good for us, Or even like the Eagles, it's like, oh, we didn't lose that many guys, but we're division champ, et cetera. Packers have to get better. They have not gotten better. They have not added human beings to the roster that are better than the many human beings that they left, and they don't have enough resources in the draft to get better.
We're going to get to this team in a second, more in depth, but they're kind of the anti-Bears. Because I look at what the Bears have done and what Ryan Poles has put together over the last two draft classes, what they've done in free agency this year. I think the Bears have created more separation with the Packers in that division, and Green Bay just doesn't realize it. Pete Olszewski checks in. The young talent didn't step up for the Packers. Team has no depth. Both lines are major concerns. Keith Keskin checks in. Sorry if I butchered the last name there, Keith. Mike, the difference between 55 receptions and 35 receptions is 20.
Okay, 20 receptions. Good point. Thank you very much. I was correcting Matt about bees.
It messed with your whole mindset. Yes,
I deserve to be corrected about my math. He led by 20 receptions. Absolutely correct. And yeah, like a lot of the young players haven't panned out, but the ones who did, like the left tackle, like Quay Walker, they're gone too.
Yeah.
He's
an athletic linebacker, and I like Zaire Franklin. Always around the football, great veteran presence. Maybe he winds up being an upgrade in Jonathan Gannon's scheme in the way that Kaiser White was both in Philadelphia and in Arizona. But you don't just shake a tree and athletic linebackers with range fall out of them. And he goes and cashes in. The contract that you signed with the Raiders is a testament to the type of player that Quay Walker is, and that's another guy that you just didn't prioritize bringing back.
Right, and you have. Franklin was a leader for the Colts for many, many years, and he's available in trade, possibly losing a step along the way. That might be what you're buying into. Why is your clubhouse captain suddenly available? You were talking about the Bears, and nothing ticks off a cheesehead like talking about how the Bears have clearly surpassed them. Just breezed past them in the last 2 years. The best thing about the Bears, they've done okay in free agency and all, is what happened to the Packers and also what happened to the Lions in free agency this year, where the Lions got rid of all of their edge rushers, just let them all leave, and then we brought in DJ Wonnum, who you mentioned that this dude has 25 pressures, Carl Brooks. I think Wonnum had 25 pressures in like 745 pass snaps or something like that.
That's wild. So there was a wager that was made.
Yes.
Off of this blue sky thread. And I'm a part of this. I didn't get a heads up. I didn't get a text message. Hey, Matt, just so you know, we're gonna make this bet. And you might have to play a part in it coming up in January, one way or the other. But, let the people in on the bet that you made, because I'm kind of excited about it.
Well, I made a bet with ranking Cheesehead Aaron Nagler. Some folks might know him from Cheesehead TV. Some might know him from his music career. Some might just know him as like one of these guys who's always on social media constantly, like he's got no other life. Aaron Nagler, great guy. We've interacted with him many times.
Buddies at the Combine and the Senior Bowl. Good dude.
Yeah, good dude. Good dude overall. Misguided, has been huffing the copium, probably has a little bit of a problem right now. And I said
copium in his basement for all we know. There might be a cheddar flavored copium being grown in his house.
Yes, cheddar copium is probably legal in New York now because he's a New York guy. And I said, name your terms. And he said, I was waiting for Packers make the playoffs. And he went with Packers win the division. Packers win the division were the terms. And if the Packers win the division, I have to come on all of my podcasts wearing a cheese hat. And we have to bring Aaron on here, and I have to extol his wisdom. I forget what exactly, it's in writing, what I have to say to admit that Aaron is the superior intellect. And I volunteered this podcast because the one I do with Shots has a corporate level. I couldn't do that necessarily. So if the Packers win the division, I have to make a fool of myself wearing the cheese head as long as the Packers are in the playoffs. The Packers could win a playoff game. It happened 2016. I forget when the last time the Packers won a playoff game. It's theoretically possible that they could do that. If they don't if they don't win the division, then Nagler has to do the same thing. He has to come on here and admit that I am the superior football intellect and the superior source of Packers knowledge. So,
and no cheesehead under that case. So again,
no,
this is where I come in, because I just said that I'm looking forward to this, and I don't know what's going to be worse. How insufferable you're going to be when they are 8-9, and
it's
you're going
insufferable.
to sit here and like gloat about how right you were, and poking the Packers fans in the eye even more than I like to do from time to time, or how humiliated you're going to feel wearing the damn cheesehead for weeks at a time.
Insufferable. Me insufferable. I don't get that. And again, I'm not poking these people in the eye. This is a health crisis among these people. I want them to handle their copium responsibly, and they're not doing that right now. So it's going to be an opportunity, a growth opportunity for Packers fans, and for Aaron in particular, who came out of the woodwork and suggested that I had unfounded opinions about the Packers. It'll be a chance for us to sort of like reset our relationship, so to speak, and I don't think I'm being insufferable by saying that I'm a superior source of Packers information to actual Packers reporters. What's insufferable about that?
I
What?
think that when he comes on, I think you're going to be able to dial up the sarcasm, dial up the the vitriol and the "I told you so's," and you, I just feel I can see this coming. I know you. I've known you long enough to know that when
Like,
you get a hobby horse, you decide you're gonna run the Kentucky
hobby
Derby
horse,
with this thing.
hobby horse, insufferable. I'm just going to say this, Matt. I've been running victory laps without Justin Herbert for 3 years, and I'm really tired.
Yes.
I'm really tired. I'm worn out from all the victory laps. So much winning here that I'm so right so frequently. And that's why I'm going easy on this. I didn't say that Nagler has to eat a cheesesteak. I didn't do anything like that. He doesn't have to come on wearing an Eagles cap or anything like that. I just said, go on and admit that, you know,
Yeah,
admit.
I think it's going to be fun. I don't anticipate seeing a block of cheese on your head. I don't anticipate it, but if it happens, we'll get through it. We'll get through it together.
We will get through it together. Yes. It'll be brief if it happens.
And I had a little bit of a social media dust up of my own that we need to
Yeah.
address here.
Yeah.
Just sitting around, and you know how I am when I get bored, my brain starts like rattling off different things, or I want to put out some power rankings, the random thoughts. And I went on Blue Sky and I went on Threads, and I was like, just some back of the napkin scrawled out NFC power rankings based on what we've seen in free agency in the offseason so far.
Mhm.
They were not all that well received. Some people liked them,
Yeah.
but some platforms were a little bit less forgiving than others.
Yeah. I'll read them off because I'm going to tell you right now, I saw them and I'm like, usually I'm looking for an excuse to needle you strictly for content. But I read those and I'm like, yeah, that's about right. Right. Read them off.
Yeah. So number one, Los Angeles Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, your Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Number three, the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Number four, maybe a bit low, but only because of the the power plant next to their practice facility causing injuries. The San Francisco 49ers. Number five, the Carolina Panthers, and six, the Eagles.
Now, was it Eagles fans coming after you?
It was a little bit of Eagles fans, and it was a little bit of the same like Packer brethren who were like, "What about Green Bay? What about the Lions?" The Detroit fans decided to pipe up and say, "Where are the Lions on that list? Where's your investment in a pass rusher that you haven't made since
Right.
time immemorial?" Right? Like,
Right. Right.
are you going to overcome the? Is this going to be the year that you overcome the injuries? Like, what's happening here? But yes, it was basically Eagles fans, Packers fans, Lions fans, and people who think that I'm a little bit too high on Carolina.
Right. But it is funny because, I mean, both of our readership tends to be very Eagles heavy because of where we're based and who we covered. And Eagles fans will look at you putting them below the Panthers and be like, yeah, screw this. Yeah, right, right. I mean, treat us worse. Like that. That's how it is. Like you can't rip. If you put them below the Cowboys, it'll probably be a problem. But like Eagles fans, like yeah, that's fair. Whatever. We haven't traded AJ Brown for 5 first-round picks yet. Let's do it. Whereas Packers fans, where did they think they would rank on that? Remember, you didn't beat the Panthers last year, guys. When you were like a super team, I think you had Mike at that point too, and you couldn't beat the Panthers.
At home. At home.
Right.
At Lambeau, they couldn't beat them. And listen, I look at Carolina, and
Right.
it's the blending of opportunity within a very down division where you could easily win 10 games because of who's in that division. Saints are going through a little bit of a rebuild. Buccaneers are kind of spinning their wheels. I'm not really blown away by what they've done this
Oh
offseason.
God, no.
Now, Atlanta's Atlanta. Who knows what that quarterback situation is going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at what they did. I think that Bryce Young is on the ascent. I think that you have Tedero McMillan, who's only going to get better from that rookie year. Jalen Coker's a nice piece. You get Jalen Phillips. You already have the J.C. Horn at cornerback. You bring in Devin Lloyd at linebacker. You've upgraded the talent at some really important positions with a young quarterback who I think is on the ascent in another year in that same system. And it just seems like the opportunity is there for Carolina to make a leap. Whereas I look at the Eagles, stayed new. Best case scenario, you've stayed about the same. You didn't really get a lot better. You didn't get a lot worse. But I think the Giants are going to be better. I think the
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys have the chance to be a little bit better than they
Right.
were because they've kind of operated like a functional franchise for the
Yeah.
first time in 25 years this offseason. So I just look at Carolina. It's the talent and it's the division that you're playing in that you can stack up some wins where I think that they're going to be a team that, at least from a record standpoint, people were stunned by the Bears record by the end of the year. I think you're going to be almost equally stunned by the Panthers just because of the easy schedule.
Right, and I think you're higher on the Panthers than me, but none of that's like anything absurd. And when you throw the schedule in, we all think the same thing. By the way, I think it was Michael Redden. I apologize that it popped up and then went away. The 49ers should have two rankings, healthy and unhealthy. And like the 49ers healthy, I guess, would be right there with the Rams, and then unhealthy, they'd be down with whoever, the Cardinals or something like that. And that makes sense. But like, yeah, I mean, you can quibble with Eagles versus Panthers, I suppose. And I can see both Lions and Packers fans being mad at you about the Bears being that high. And maybe I'd slide the Bears down a little bit because, again, healthy 49ers, I feel like that's undiscovered country, and that could be really high. But those are pretty much the rankings. And if you're going to say 7, if you want to put the Packers at 7, that makes some sense. If you want to put the Lions at 7, that makes some sense. If you want to put the Cowboys at 7 and say, they draft one really good defensive player with what they got, and then they're the 7th because it's going to be 35 to 33 every week. That's not foolish, but that's like the Peloton.
Yeah.
And you're right. And the Panthers are above that right now. And I'm a big Panther skeptic. They're above that. Did good in the offseason. Do have younger players moving their way up. Seem to have this we're gonna snipe you, we're gonna hit you in the kneecaps if you make a mistake mentality that works for them. Yeah, I would put them ahead of all those teams, including the Packers.
And as far as the Bears go,
Mhm.
look, I just look at the evolution of that offense through
Mhm.
Ben Johnson's first season. Think back to like the first 5 or 6 weeks, and Caleb Williams is kind of finding his
Yeah.
way, really inconsistent. They double and triple down on running the ball with DeAndre Swift and eventually Kyle Monangai, and it's a lot of scrambles from Caleb. And by the end of the year, it's a pretty functioning,
Yeah.
balanced offense between we're
Mhm.
going to lean in and we're gonna ground and pound with Kyle Monangai, but Caleb's going to beat you in the last 2 minutes because he's figured it out and he's more comfortable with Roma Dunze, and Colston Loveland's finding his own. What is that all going to be in not week 2, but
Right.
year 2? Right? What's this going to be for Caleb Williams walking into that situation where Ben Johnson has more of a familiarity with what Caleb does best? Caleb is more confident in that scheme. All of these young weapons that you've drafted are all developing all at once. And it just seems like they're a team that's more on the ascent than someone like, say, the Eagles or the Packers or the Lions. And that's why I think that the Bears have that separation within the division.
Now, somebody, and I apologize because your name disappeared here, but the Bears get the first place schedule, the Lions get the 4th place. That's a 3-game swing in the Lions' favor, so they're my comeback pick in 2026. That's fine. I think we're doing strength of schedule. kind of early here because like you have to see how these things really line up and who's where and who did well in the draft. I don't hate that, but the Bears, you can't strength of schedule with the Bears. They were beating bad teams early in the year barely, and they were beating good teams by in the year barely or not that sometimes not barely in a few cases like against the Eagles.
I
You
mean, they
can
go into Philly and they run them off the field. I mean, they just
right,
run it down their throats and no answers. Then you go into the playoffs and they beat the Packers. Yes, it took late game heroics, but
right,
they came back and they beat the Packers. And they came
right,
back to take the Rams
right.
into an overtime situation where DJ Moore kind of loafs it on a deep ball, and he's not there anymore, right? But
Right.
they've shown that they can hang. They've showed that they can beat playoff caliber teams. And maybe it's projecting on my part, but I just look at the whole situation going from what they were to what they
Yeah.
have the chance to be,
But
and I'm pretty high on them.
yeah, when you see a quarterback getting better throughout his second year, that's probably actual development.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially when again the schedule's getting harder and he's getting better. Not like he hit this goofy thing where he kept playing like the Jets over and over again. So that's probably development. And then when Burden and Loveland are developing alongside of him, like that's probably the progress under the first year coach that you were hoping for. That's the best conjecture we can make, and that's why I look at the Bears and say, yeah, right now they're number one in the NFC North, which is a very competitive division.
absolutely. And former NFC North, either thorn in the side or folk hero, if we're still speaking to Cheesehead Nation, Aaron Rodgers. Um, what is going on there in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers? Because it seems like it's still the waiting game, and it still seems like I remember last year walking out of my house to pick my daughter up at the bus, and I recorded a quick video. Oh, mandatory minicamp starts tomorrow. Aaron Rodgers will be there. He signs with the Steelers. I feel like I'm going to do something similar this year. This could drag on through the draft and then up to mandatory minicamp. We're going to have the same selfie style video. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is back. He's going to the Steelers. Do you think anything differently plays out there?
Rodgers' goal is to get past the window of you picking your kid up at school. He wants to get in the late June.
Like June.
So like a video with fireworks playing in the background and a parade going by. Happy Independence Day. Aaron Rodgers finally signed. Hey,
It's Latrobe. It's in Latrobe. He's riding in the Corvette with the top down, waving as the parade into Latrobe when training camp kicks off.
as George McKinney just said, neither side is talking, and that's a pretty accurate way of putting things. Like Rodgers is deflecting whenever he's like popped his head out. Mike McCarthy spoke, and it was the most generalized, broad, weird. He sounded like somebody who was going to see his ex-wife at a wedding and wasn't really looking forward to it, but trying to be a grown-up about it. Very strange vibe there. I just go back to Omar Khan's comments, and we're going back now a month to the combine, where it's like, it's not going to be like last year. There's going to be timelines. There is no timeline. All of free agency just passed. All of like the other compromise solutions, I guess, besides maybe Kirk Cousins or something like that, are already off the board. Rodgers has already did the thing that gets him his jollies, which is make you sit around and wait until you have no other choices but him.
They even went so far to trade for Michael Pittman Jr. You have DK
Right.
Metcalf. You trade for Michael Pittman. Oh, you have two receivers now.
Hmm?
Come on back. Come on back. Come to
Yeah.
OTAs. Get your timing down with these guys. Start the season early. And no.
Sign a contract. Sign a contract and then say, I will see you in training camp. But at least you can plan for me being there at training camp. I am a superstar. I'm not going to be at your OTAs. I actually spent a year with the program last year, so I kind of know things, whatever. But sign the contract. Somebody said I would take Aaron Rodgers over Kyler Murray. I would take Aaron Rodgers over Kyler Murray if I had a contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michael Allen Brewer is asking if Cousins is still a free agent. I
Yes.
think he is
It's
still a free agent.
available. Yeah,
Right.
he's still floating out there, and I don't even know that it would be all that expensive to sign Kirk Cousins. I mean, his
No.
agent is already in the Sports Business Hall of Fame. He's already, the amount of guaranteed money that Kirk Cousins has collected throughout his career. At this point, it might just be situation shopping for him. Steelers would be a great situation for a guy
Oh,
like Kirk Cousins. And if I'm
yeah.
Omar Khan, I might be like leaking back channels. Oh, Kirk Cousins, we're going to bring him in for a free agent visit. I mean, kind of
Right.
poke the bear a little bit to see if I can't rustle out a reaction from Aaron Rodgers.
But then you get into the politics of that where you poke the bear. It's like you brought in Kirk Cousins. As stalker abuser behavior, I saw you talking to another guy, and Rodgers says, "Well, then I'm retiring." And meanwhile, Cousins goes in and it's like, "So does this mean Aaron Rodgers is off the table?" It's like, "No, Aaron Rodgers is still on the table." And Cousins is like, "You can't use me like this. Like, I'm not going to put in a situation where I sign something and then Rodgers shows up. That's not, I have dignity too. At least when the Raiders talk to me, they say, well, will you be the bridge for Mendoza? They're not like lying to me. So you get into that weird nether space where not having Rodgers under contract makes everything sort of socio-political and strange.
As everything is with Aaron Rodgers. Free agency, the fireworks show has ended. We
Yes.
touched it on the top. It's kind of the bargain bin, the thrift shop signing period, but there's still some unresolved moves, some drama yet to come, some trades that happened and then didn't, some lingering question marks. What's the biggest development that you're waiting, other than Aaron Rodgers, to see how it plays out?
Watching the 49ers and Trent Williams very carefully, this is turned into one of those 49ers boondoggles, which happen from time to time with contracts. You might remember Brandon Ayuk. I believe that we shot him into space recently. I don't know what happened to Brandon Ayuk, but like that turned into a boondoggle, which turned into a bigger boondoggle. In this case, Williams wants a restructuring, wants more guarantees. I think the 49ers, A, are worried about his age. B, are the 49ers and turning everything into 6 months of like complaining financially. The 49ers got Williams because of a big brouhaha with the Washington franchise. Now, there was a medical element to that where, how unprofessional they were, where he was actually mad at their training staff, et cetera. But Williams is the kind of guy who you can't expect to just sign the contract and be like, well, I capitulated. And the 49ers aren't good at like handling this. So there's a chance that like they have a Hall of Fame-ish, still Pro Bowl-ish level left tackle that a veteran team is counting on, and we don't know when he's showing up and for how much money and whether this explodes in their face and becomes something Ayuk-like or becomes just like 2021 Trent Williams-like. What do
Right.
you have?
And when do you solve that? Does it reach a
Yeah,
resolution at training camp? Does it become a
right.
hold-in situation like Cam Hayward and the Steelers last summer? Is it
Right.
a situation where they make a financial apology sometime in June? Yeah, I
Right.
agree that's definitely going to be a potential drama to watch.
Yeah. What do you got?
Yeah, I have two pass rushers that I'm
All
really
right.
interested in, Kayvon Thibodeau and Max Crosby, because the Giants keep kind of signaling that they're moving on from Thibodeau, or at the very least that they're gauging interest in the trade market in Kayvon Thibodeau. But it's such a deep pass rush class, right? We
Yeah.
kind of like criticize this draft, you and I, on social media and just in text messages. But the one area where it's really strong, just like free agency, was pass rushers. You have Arvell
Yeah.
Reese and Ruben Bain. They could be legitimate force multiplying difference makers for a defense. David Bailey is kind of in that mix too. There may be 8 pass rushers with first round grades in
Mhm.
this class. And then you still have guys like Zion Young and Denai Dennis Sutton and Akeem Messidor that, when you talk to scouts and executives, seem a little bit higher on than maybe media and the fans are. But the Giants, they just seem to they're holding on to Kayvon Thibodeau. So I don't know whether you let the draft play out and then you pick up the phone, you start calling teams that maybe missed out on some of those guys because of, you think about how strong the free agent class was, how strong the draft class is. That's kind of depressing the market a little bit. But what happens with Thibodeau, and what happens with Max Crosby? Because are the
Mhm.
Raiders actually going to like kiss and make up there, and he's going to play out the year, and everything's going to be hunky dory? But if I'm the Raiders, maybe the Bills or the 49ers, make some sense that you call up and say, hey, I know that bad medical is out there. It's not going to be 2 first
Right.
round picks, but trade us a second round pick. Or if you're the Patriots and you have $31.5 million in cap space, you have to replace, Coavion Chason. Do you call up and offer the 31st overall pick for Max Crosby, for a team that just went to the Super Bowl but had its defense exposed in that game? Do you call up the Raiders? So those two edge rushers, to me, they're going to be one of the more interesting latter offseason storylines to watch.
I feel like the Giants, if they were to lose Thibodeau and Evan Neal, they just wouldn't know what to do anymore. Like they know all the internet passwords or something like that. And in Thibodeau's case, as opposed to Neal, Thibodeau has like trade value because he can play football. It's like what you said is true. I think that the value on the market is like, you want Thibodeau? And they're like, okay, edge rusher. His give a damn meter kind of goes up and down a little bit. We can get guys in the draft. Hey, you want a 6th-round pick? And they're like, well, for a 6th-round pick, we're just going to keep him and rotate him behind the guys we got. Crosby, everybody really has been working on the emotional element of that since the botch trade, where Crosby has given quotes about being everything happens for a reason. I was never meant to be there. I'm back with the Raiders. I'm comfortable with this. The Raiders made all kind of soothing, smoothing sounds. So it would feel really weird for them to turn around and move him again. It sounds like when they realized that trade wasn't going to happen, everybody got the chocolates and the flowers out and said, let's get through another year with this.
One more year.
One more year. The dude's getting paid money hand over fist. He realizes that they can all do this all again next year. But it would just be strange from the politics of how they've approached this for them to go out and try to make another blockbuster out of this. And I'm guessing a lot of teams who might pick up the phone and be like, seriously? You know, like some of these guys, like, wait, you guys, like, I don't want to be sloppy seconds in this situation. There's a medical out there.
How bad was the medical? Like be straight with me. How bad was it? And you weren't straight with Baltimore, apparently. How bad was it? Be straight with me.
Right. How bad was that? How much of this, what weird smoky stuff might be going on the side that led to that thing? Teams would be like, hey, you know what? We have our budget and we have our structure, and they give them that routine. So I don't necessarily see that one being one where they move.
Before we get out of here, quick shout out and congratulations to Mike Westhoff, veteran special teams coach and coordinator, formerly of the New York Jets, New Orleans Saints, Denver Broncos, friend of the pod, among his other stops in the NFL, just recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame as its Award of Excellence recipient for this year. Friend of the show, you and I both know him fairly well over the years. Innovative when it comes to special teams concepts and how teams coach and play that position. Really well-deserved honor. Happy to see him honored by the Hall of Fame.
Phenomenal. Good guy with the media, of course, was always very gracious with us. We've had questions over the years, et cetera. And just a legend in like almost like a pioneering special teams coach, because he was one of the early ones that was like, well, you're a coordinator and you have these jobs. So fantastic. I'm glad he got that. Great news for Mike Westhoff.
Absolutely. What do we have coming up on the Two Deep Zone in the days and weeks ahead?
We are starting to pivot to draft coverage, and may the Lord have mercy on our souls trying to cover this particular draft. But folks, you're going to start seeing some of the scouting reports come out. You're going to see, some of the lists of running backs, talking about Jeremiah Love, talking about Drew Aller. We're going to be doing a little stuff on that. A lot of things like that. How are you going to get through this little bit of doldrums on your end of things, Matt?
Yeah, so the Between the Hash Marks podcast interview on Sundays that we're up there on the site right now. Josh Geske, Illinois offensive guard, rising at the position. Go listen to the interview. Seriously, really cool kid. And I love when I was in locker rooms every day. I'd always make a point to spend like 5 minutes chatting with the offensive linemen, because they're like the most revelatory. They love to talk. They'll really break down the game to the next level. I learned so much from that conversation with Josh about what it takes to win in the trenches. I think people will enjoy that conversation. Might have another interesting and really special guest, veteran player, coming up this Sunday. Don't want to tease it by name because we're still trying to lock down the timing, but be on the lookout for that. We'll have the mailbag on Friday where folks can ask me their questions, and I'll pose them to executive scouts and coaches around the league to get their answers. And over the next few weeks in the Monday morning column, get ready for big boards. We'll have the top 10 offensive players, top 10 defensive players, and the Monday before the draft will be my one and only mock draft.
Phenomenal. Yeah, we're going to get through this. I might be doing a mailbag next week too. The pre-Easter Holy Week penitent, whatever you want to call it, mailbag. So we'll be doing that in addition to some draft coverage.
As always, if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe to Between the Hashmarks podcast in the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us those 5-star reviews and ratings. They really do help grow the show. If you watch the podcast, but you don't make the live episode, you can check it out on my YouTube channel. Subscribe there at Matt Lombardo 975. If you enjoy Mike's brand of firebrand storytelling, the dad jokes, the sarcasm that gets woven in, be sure to subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. You can subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack as well to get my features and my reporting. Mike, this has been a ton of fun. Look forward to a couple weeks from now to get back together. And hopefully the beard is even more impressive and in better shape by the next pod. Great progress so far.
Thank you very much. And it's not like they get shorter.